Dan, you good? I heard some weird spooky whispers coming from in there. More voices than typical, so I thought I'd check in. Are you talking to yourself? Oh yeah, sorry, just learning magic stuff. I got this fancy new book called The Darkholme. That sounds like a terrible idea. You hate magic. You're 100% going to break something. I don't know, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness got me thinking that maybe it could help me with some things. Productivity, all that kind of stuff. Again, horrible idea.
Yeah, I told him the same thing, but he didn't listen. Productivity can be increased by 4 points if we have one more Dan.
Wait, are we all you? Yeah, I've been pulling you all from the multiverse. You're a Dan who thinks he's Jake. Well, that's confusing. Is there any other Dans I should be aware of? Oh, just my favorite one. And that is... Orangutan. Oranga what? It's me, but an orangutan. Get it?
Welcome to GateCrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. I'm Jordan Edwards, and my pronouns are he, him.
And I'm Dan, my pronouns are he, him. Jordan, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. It is very strange to be on a podcast that I listen to and know stuff about and doing the intro. It's just, it's very weird and fun. But yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited you're here. I don't think we've spoken once or twice on Zoom before, but we've never actually had a full on conversation.
No,
like
we haven't.
this.
Yeah, so this is all very.
So it is.
Very exciting.
We're literally pretty much opposite time zones as well.
Yeah.
It's 10 a.m. there. It's 6 p.m. here. Love that. So we're talking about something that you love. What is our subject today?
So we are talking about Doctor Strange, the character, the Marvel Comics character. Of course, we're talking about him to coincide with the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But yeah, Doctor Strange has long been my favorite Marvel Comics character, probably my favorite comics character in general, and possibly my favorite fictional character of all time. I've just had a deep, deep love of this character, just for a very long time. So I'm very excited to talk about why I love him so much and stuff.
I didn't know it was your all-time. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here then.
Yeah.
You may, listeners, you may know Jordan from the site. Jordan writes some of the most in-depth comic stuff that we got. He's a walking encyclopedia. I don't think there's anyone who knows more about comics that I've ever spoken to who isn't an asshole about it. So it's great to have someone who's actually fun to talk to about comics. So, Doctor Strange, when did you first get into the character?
So this is an interesting question because, I was thinking about this just the other day because if you asked me this about, most of my other favorite characters, I wouldn't be able to give you an answer. But Doctor Strange is, one of the only ones where I can actually give an answer for that because I have such a vivid memory of when I first was introduced to the character. It was in, it wasn't in a Doctor Strange story at all. It was in a really good Spider-Man story by J. Michael Straczynski. And John Romita Jr. was Happy Birthday Spider-Man, which was, do you know that story? It was issue 600 or something. But basically it's kind of Spider-Man going through all these different periods in his life. It's this big kind of anniversary special. But it kicks off with this massive invasion of Dormammu invading New York City. And all the New York City kind of superhero community are there to kind of stop it. There's a Fantastic Four and Iron Man and Spider-Man shows up. And everyone is this is completely wild. We are losing so much ground here. We're not doing super great in this big, massive battle. And everyone's where is Doctor Strange? We really need, this guy in our corner because we are just getting completely annihilated. And then Doctor Strange shows up and then just kind of, mops the floor with everybody. And there's just such an awe and, mystery around the character where I read that and then I was man, I have to read, everything about this character because that just fascinated me so much. Just, the weird respect and kind of who is this guy? Is he some kind of big, massive, mystical figure that everyone kind of has this weird reverence for? Yeah. I've just kind of always been drawn to that aspect of like Doctor Strange being this kind of weird magic guy that people go and visit sometimes in like in their own books and stuff. Yeah.
So I'll be honest with you, I've used this before. It's my entire exposure before reading. So for this episode, we read The Oath and also issue 46.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, was it issue 46 or 48?
I think it was 46. Sorry, no, 48.
Issue 48 of Doctor Strange Volume 2. Mm-hmm. So this is my first like real exposure. I've seen him in other stories. I've seen him show up in the X-Men, Spider-Man, things like that. But like, I really just know the movie character. Like, this is one of those times where it's like, I know the movie way better than I know the book, which is cool for me because now I get to actually learn more about the character, which always excites me. I hate magic. Just across the board. I hate magic as an element in stories because the only weakness to magic is magic. And they literally bring it up in The Oath. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh shit, I think I might like this. Yeah. So, it's a wild story.
Yeah. I think that's part of why I recommend The Oath and why like The Oath has kind of become the de facto Doctor Strange recommendation. I think in some part, that's just because it's much more of a grounded story. Like, it's not all the kind of, like, multiversal different dimensions and kind of oogity-boogity, like, trippy kind of visuals and stuff. It's mostly very grounded, very kind of relatable story, which is, it's a good end for the character.
The trippy imagery does come in the other series, though.
Yes.
So, quick back-of-the-box blurb about Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. Doctor Strange is the resident magic... Hold on. The Marvel Magic Man. The Magic Marvel Man of the Marvel Universe. That one sounds good. He began as an arrogant surgeon, but after an injury that damaged his hands, he traveled the world trying to find a way to treat his injuries. Instead, he found the Ancient One, who taught him the mystic arts, which set him on a path to become the Earth's Sorcerer Supreme. What that basically means is that he's basically the main defender of Earth's dimension from supernatural threats. He's a weird dude with a magic house in New York who protects the world from mystical threats. Most are better off not knowing about. We're better off not knowing about. That's really the gist of it. I know this came in way later, but he has a ghost dog and two sassy snakes.
They all rule. I love them so much.
Was that from Donny Cates' run?
So the two snakes were introduced in Jason Aaron's run, and then Bats the dog was introduced in Donny Cates' run.
I know the dog because of like the pictures where he meets Spider-Man, and he's like super excited to meet Spider-Man, and he's like, "You live with me," and he's like, "Yeah, but you're not Spider-Man."
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Love that. So what? Like a brief history on the character.
Yeah. So Doctor Strange was created in 1963 by Steve Ditko and Stan Lee in that early wave of 60s Marvel creative dynamite. Though Doctor Strange took a little longer to find his feet since he was relegated to short backup stories and strange tales. Eventually he began to garner an audience though as Ditko took more control of the character and used him as a vessel to just go completely bananas with his art. They outdrew a whole new audience of college students and people using psychedelics, so it's one of the forerunners of trippy comics and pushed the boundaries of what you could do with the comics medium. Although Strange has never been one of Marvel's most popular characters, this has remained true through most of his history. He's not a top seller, but writers and artists are always using him to push the boundaries of what can be done in a comic book.
Yeah, so when I opened the one issue, it's like, it's very trippy, and I think it really, really translated to screen, like the way they show magic in his films, at least, is very, very interesting. It's very different from the comics. The comics have a much more psychedelic, like colorful, vibrant look to them, rather than the weird mirroring. But I really enjoy both. Like it interests me way more than other magic things.
Yep.
But what would you say, like, some of the major themes of Doctor Strange?
So Doctor Strange has a lot of very interesting thematic material to deal with, and it's a huge part of why I've always been drawn to the character. I think first and foremost, though, you kind of need to acknowledge the inherent racism in his origins. Strange is 100% a white savior narrative of a white man coming from abroad and becoming the best in his field in an Eastern setting, although this is muddied by Ditko's early Strange, who was almost implied to be of Asian descent. A lot of early Strange stories lean into tropes of Orientalism, which is unfortunate. However, this has given Strange a lot of themes different to other characters. He's all about mysticism and learning one's place in the grander scheme of the universe. A lot of Strange's stories deal with heavy existential themes and ideas as he travels through different dimensions and planes of existence. His stories are often far more methodical and intellectually challenging. There's also a degree of spirituality in the character that you won't really find with Spider-Man or Green Arrow. So while there are certainly problematic aspects of the character, I think he's incredibly fascinating and thematically rich. He's kind of a melting pot of all sorts of crazy ideas that most superheroes wouldn't go near, and that's why I love him.
Interesting. I could see that. The other thing that really bothered me about these stories is how Wong calls him, what is he called? Not master.
He calls him master a lot of the time. Yes.
Master. Yeah. Not into that. I understand that it came where it came from. And something that could have been done away with quite earlier, but it is nice, again, because I know the MCU more than I know this, it's really nice that Wong is his hire.
Yes.
I think that makes me, I don't know the characteristics of Wong in comics, but movie Wong is probably my favorite character. I love that guy.
So the characteristics of Wong are pretty much consistent through both. He's a pretty stern, very serious character, but movie Wong is definitely way up there in terms of to the same kind of level as Doctor Strange, because in the comics, he's often called Strange's manservant through most of his history, which is incredibly problematic. But he does kind of fall into a lot of those kind of tropes of kind of Asian servants and kind of people he just delivers tea, and there's a lot of very problematic connotations with that. But over time, he's kind of become a bit more of Strange's partner. And then the MCU was okay, we're going to give him straight up, he has all of the magical abilities that Strange has, which in the comics he doesn't really have as much. And now in the movies, they've kind of flipped it so that now he is, the Sorcerer Supreme, and Strange is he's the kind of the underling to him, which is such a fun reversal.
Yeah, it's a really good bit too. They're very fun about it.
Exactly.
So for me, who may like this, as someone who doesn't like magic, I actually really enjoyed this story. So if you're someone who likes the fantasy setting or likes a little bit more psychedelic kind of vibes in your comics, I think Doctor Strange is something you want to check out. I do think, honestly, The Oath is something that maybe it gives you enough about the character. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you'll be able to be okay, I kind of get this guy's thing. But we are doing The Oath, which is pretty accessible. You can find it through the Marvel app, if it is available where you are. Or you can buy it physically at your local comic book shop or bookstore. If you don't have a local comic book shop, always go to threadcomics.com. They'll always hook you up. Not a paid ad. They're the only people I trust to send my listeners to. So we are going to get into a discussion about the story with spoilers. So stop here if you want that. We are also at the end of the episode going to talk about the newest film in the Multiverse of Madness. And we will give another warning before we start talking spoilers about that. So you can listen to the comic part of the episode, go see the movie, and then come back and finish the very tippy top, the very tippy bottom, somewhere at the bottom of the episode. Listen to our unfiltered thoughts on the film, because I saw a press screening and Jordan is in the future. So
I am.
So we will talk to you in a minute.
You're a man looking at the world through a keyhole, and you've spent your whole life trying to widen that keyhole, to see more, to know more. And now, on hearing that it can be widened in ways you can't imagine, you reject the possibility.
No, I reject it because I do not believe in fairy tales about chakras or energy or the power of belief. There is no such thing as spirit. We are made of matter and nothing more. You're just another tiny, momentary speck within an indifferent universe.
You think too little of yourself.
Oh, you think you see through me, do you? Well, you don't. But I see through you.
Okay, so I actually want to ask a bunch of questions about Doctor Strange before we talk about the story. So who is his rogues gallery? Is it Mordo? Mordo, that's his name?
Yes.
Mordo Dormammu. Did I say it right?
Yes. Yep. You
got him.
both two for two right now.
2-2 Mordo. I saw a golem at one point. Is that a thing?
There's a lot of different things. So I'm really glad that you asked that question, because I think Strange is one of the most underrated rogues galleries in comics, because he just has so many interesting and distinct and different villains that he just fights all the time. Obviously the big two that you mentioned were was Dormammu, who is kind of like the ruler of the Dark Dimension. He's kind of the main big bad of Doctor Strange. He's like the kind of the Joker to his Batman, if you will. He's kind of the main kind of omnipotent threat. And Mordo is, I guess, he's kind of like an evil version of Doctor Strange. Like he's like the kind of like, what if Doctor Strange didn't use his powers for good kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And for most of Strange's early history, he was pretty much the sole villain. So a lot of those early Ditko stories can be a bit repetitive. But he's kind of found more of his footing now and again. He often teams up with some of the bigger villains. And there's also Nightmare. So Nightmare was he was actually the very first Strange villain. He appeared in the first appearance of Strange as well, when Steve Ditko and Stan Lee created him. He's basically just the ruler of like this nightmare realm, and he can kind of control people's nightmares, and he's kind of like leaning into all that. Him. Yeah.
Okay, he's the green one.
Mm-hmm. He's very, like design-wise, he's quite similar to like Morpheus from Sandman, and has a similar kind of vibe as well. But obviously more villainous. And then there's Shuma Gorath, who is the big kind of green tentacle monster.
That one I like.
Yes,
he was in Marvel vs. Capcom. That's how I know him.
Yes, so he was in. Like him. Yeah. I think that's probably most people's first exposure to Shuma Gorath was through you get like a little pixel Marvel vs. Capcom. It's still hilarious to me that he was just thrown in there. It's like, oh yeah, people know this character. It's like very obscure.
What the fuck was that roster? They were like, oh yeah, throw Shuma Gorath in here. People love him.
Yeah,
big guy.
People love MODOK. We'll put MODOK in there.
Yeah, like that's where MODOK. I actually saw the Iron Man cartoon. He was in that, so I knew him. Yeah, Shuma Gorath was always like, what the fuck? Like, what is this character? And it's not him in the movie, in like the trailers and stuff. That's not him, right?
In Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah.
No, that is him in most senses. So the rumor is that they were hoping to use
Gargantos?
But they changed the name to Gargantos, which is like a Namor, this kind of tentacle squid monster. But they had to change the name because Shuma Gorath is kind of tied up in like some Conan the Barbarian rights and stuff. So like they legally can't use the name Shuma Gorath because Marvel used to publish Conan comics.
Excuse me?
Yeah, so like Shuma Gorath is also kind of like a Conan character. So they like legally aren't allowed to use. Look, comics are weird, man.
What? Shuma Gorath is a Conan character?
Kind of. It's complicated. But they aren't allowed to use the name Shuma Gorath in it apparently, and they don't even call him Gargantos in the movie. So yeah,
they don't call him anything.
No.
Huh. I'm just gonna pretend it's my favorite character from Marvel vs. Capcom too. But I know he like battles Loki and he rubs shoulders with like Doom at some points too, right?
Yeah. So I would say that Strange definitely has a strong rose gallery of a lot of different characters, but he's probably most utilized through his history in like team-ups or like meeting up with other characters, just because he's such an obscure character that he's used to be obscure, now he's getting like hundreds of $1 million movies, but he used to not really be able to sustain his books as much, so a lot of his exposure was through other people's books where he fought other people's villains, like you said, like Loki and Doctor Doom and stuff. Yeah. So I wouldn't really... I wouldn't necessarily call like Loki or Doctor Doom like Doctor Strange villains, but he's tangled with them a few times.
He's fought him.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it. The Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange story, the Magnola one. Magnola did the art
Triumph
for
and
it.
Torment.
Yeah. I really like them together because they're both kind of arrogant assholes, but like Strange is less so than Doctor Doom. Really like them, their dynamic together. But
it's such a good pairing.
Yeah, in the Oath, they show a bunch of his enemies, and I was like, I know like 4 of the. There's a guy with like a purple cape. Listeners at home are really into this one. He's got like a purple cape, and he's got like a white skull face. They just made a toy of him.
Yeah.
Is his name Dreamwalker? Dream something.
Yeah.
He's page 12 of issue 3. So after he does the bondage stuff with Brigand.
Yeah.
Brigand and it's a page of Damar.
Yeah.
Right on the bottom, there's like a full like little spread of all the characters. So he's to the top left. And I do not know this character's name, but he has such a simple but cool look.
Yeah, that's the guy that got a Marvel Legend recently. So if you
what's his name?
I can't remember his name. I should remember this.
Killing me.
But he
You
appears.
just know every single character.
I'm
ever.
sorry, I don't know every single thing. You set me up at the start, be like, oh, he's the most knowledgeable person I know. He knows every single thing about comics.
Marvel Legend, purple cape.
But he's got like a black and white like color scheme.
Yeah, he's got a cool look. I just don't know his name.
He shows up later in the Roger Stern run, which is like after that issue we're going to be talking about later. So a few issues after that.
Okay, so let's talk about the Oath. I didn't realize it was new. Knowing this comic, like everyone's always been like, oh, this is the best like Doctor Strange story, but it's only from like 2006, right?
Yes, yeah. It's a pretty recent story. It's not really that old. I think it's just part of why people recommend it, just because it's very accessible.
Mm-hmm. And it's Brian K. Vaughan who wrote Why the Last Man.
Yeah. So this was kind of in that area where he was at Marvel. He was doing stuff like The Runaways is his most kind of big popular book, and the artist Marcos Martin. I think I'm not sure if he was doing Spider-Man at this point or he was about to do Spider-Man, but he did a bunch of great work on Spider-Man, which is probably where most people know him from.
It's also sorry, I'm pulling up the credits page because I didn't do that up top. That's on me. So Brian K. Vaughan did the story and Marcos Martin did the art. The colors are by Javier Rodriguez. Is that the same Javier Rodriguez that went on to do art? Mm-hmm. Or is that so that's the one who just did the Defenders story?
Yes.
You can tell because the colors that he uses are so unlike anyone else's. Like they're so vibrant. That Defenders book fucking rocks. I don't know if you like it, but like I love.
Oh yeah,
that.
I love the whole book. And if you want more Javier Rodriguez Doctor Strange stuff, he did a really great miniseries with I can't remember what it was with. But around the time Jason Aaron was doing his run, it was Doctor Strange and the Sorcerers Supreme. So it was like a whole bunch of different sorcerers, like from across the multiverse. So that's a kind of a multiversal Strange story, and that's like a crazy gorgeous book.
Strange deal with the multiverse a lot. I know we'll eventually talk about the book, but like,
not really, to be honest. He deals. It's kind of interesting. He deals with a lot of like, if you think of like multiverses in terms of like different realms and different universes in terms of like a nightmare dimension, but not as much in like alternate like parallel Earths as much. Like sometimes, but he's not like the multiverse guy. I think a lot of people have kind of just assumed that now, but yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of where he got put now.
Yeah.
I think everyone wants to do a little bit of multiverse now. It's just like the trend we're gonna see forever.
It's the name of the guy in black and white is D-Spire. It's like
are you kidding me? I literally am looking at the Marvel. I'm literally zooming in as you're talking. I was zooming in to try to get the name.
D-Spire. Yeah. So
his is really recent. His Marvel Legend. It was from
it only came out in the Multiverse of Madness. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so did Sleepwalker. Wild. That's why I thought he was Sleepwalker because they're in the same line. Also, the Minotaur, is that a big thing through Doctor Strange, or is that just
kind of? So that is Rintrah. Rintrah is a character from the Peter Gillis run, which was just after this this Roger Stern run, which we're going to talk about a bit later. But he introduced Rintrah as kind of Strange's like apprentice. He was kind of like discipling him. He was just like, he's in like another dimension or whatever. I was surprised at how he just kind of showed up and they don't really mention or like pay any notice to him at all. He's just like, oh yeah, there's just a green Minotaur. What of it?
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe I should know who that is, but no, I guess not.
Oh. I think it may even call him Rintrah. He's just kind of there. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Oath.
Let's do it.
Where do you want to start? What do you want to talk about?
I think one thing we're talking about was we're talking about Wong earlier. I think that's kind of an interesting point to start with talking about this, is that this is kind of one of the foundational stories in terms of developing Wong and Strange's relationship, like in terms of making them less like servant and master and more kind of equals. It's still not entirely there in this, like he still calls him master, but you do get the sense in this one that they're both like, you know, good friends and accomplices, and like that Strange actually cares about him. So like, yeah, the story is obviously it's about Wong kind of gets cancer and Strange is trying to basically find a cure to heal him. It's kind of like the main basic premise of the story, which is pretty simple compared to a lot of other Doctor Strange stories, which is like, he goes into a dimension and he fights some crazy being and then he has an existential crisis about death or something. Whereas this one's like, yeah, he's just trying to like help his friend or whatever.
Yeah, it is. It's not even like he will go to any length to save his friend.
Yeah.
I think it's admirable because like it literally opens with him being brought into Night Nurse is her not hostel, her hospice, and like he's been shot, help him, but in reality it's like because he was trying to help his buddy, like he couldn't let him die.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that. Like the way this issue was set up, I was not like, it was a total flip from what I thought I was going to get.
Yeah.
I was
Opening
like,
scene.
is this going to be like a memory type thing? But
That opening scene is also just one of my favorite moments in the comic book, just because it just solidifies everything that I love about the Marvel Universe, where characters are just kind of like casually superheroes and they kind of just pop in and out. Like Iron Fist is just reading like a magazine and just like in the waiting room or whatever. He's like pulled his tendon or whatever. Like yeah, it's just very fun. And then this abrupt kind of shift into Doctor Strange has been shot.
I love that scene. I love the casual superhero-ness of it. It's just like these two people sitting in a waiting room and Iron Fist is like, yes, I'm Iron Fist. No, I don't know where Power Man is. We're partners, not a couple. Like he like knew what was coming next.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
That's the kind of stuff I live for. Like I really like the back and forth between these characters. And then door gets kicked open, it's raining, and Doctor Strange has been shot. And I was like, oh, this is not what I expected at all for this story.
Yeah, it's a really, really good opening. It just kind of throws you into it.
And Night Nurse is not a character. Like she just is a doctor, right? Like that's her entire bit. Like she just helps people.
She's just a doctor who kind of helps out the superhero community. Yeah. Why
does she wear a cape?
Because she helps out the superhero community.
Right.
It needs to be on brand.
Okay.
I guess if you're going to be stitching up all these superheroes and they're coming in wearing these crazy costumes, like I guess you kind of have to go with it a little bit. Otherwise, you'll feel a little bit excluded.
if I'm like a vet, I'm not wearing like a dog collar. But
I guess like, that. Yeah. It's ridiculous, but hey, that's comics, man. That's how they go.
Yeah, it's how it's just part of the bit.
Yeah. But one thing that's interesting though about Night Nurse is that Christine Palmer, who is Strange's kind of like main love interest in the MCU, was also Night Nurse in the comics. So they've kind of brought in the dynamic between Strange and Night Nurse in The Oath, but then like changed it to a different Night Nurse for the movies, and then also changed the dynamic.
There's multiple Night Nurses?
Yes, there's a few Night Nurses.
I didn't know that. Yep. I just thought there was one.
Nope, there's a couple.
Do they all wear the cape?
I don't think so. I don't think Christine does.
It's part of the legacy. So is Christine like a big character in the comics or no?
Nope. She's had like maybe like a dozen or like half, like a dozen or like 2 dozen appearances maybe. She's not that big a character.
Not interesting.
No.
We'll talk about that later because that is not.
Definitely don't get that vibe from the movies. She's a pretty big character.
Yeah.
Especially in the latest one.
Yeah, I did not. Okay, cool. So the has there ever been something where like he's on a table and he like, what do you call it when he's like out of his body?
Astral projecting. So astral projecting. So it's projecting his astral form.
Does that happen often?
In terms of like him being on a table and projecting himself?
Like the nurse thing.
Yes, so that kind of, there's a scene in this that's kind of taken from, like the 2016 Doctor Strange movie takes that, where, like, there's a bit in the Oath where Strange is kind of overseeing his own operation kind of thing, and they took that and put it into the MCU. So the first MCU movie that Scott Derrickson directed is very inspired by this in terms of, like, just kind of tone, and it's kind of trying to kind of ground it a bit. That was kind of the main influence over a lot of the MCU Doctor Strange. But that has also happened a few times in the past as well. There's I think it's a Chris Claremont story in the late 70s that does that as well. It's happened more. Claremont, it's decent. It's just kind of, it's one of those in between runs where he was kind of just filling in between, like Englehart and then Rogerson and stuff.
Did he get a lot of his fetishes in there too, or is that just X-Men?
I think it's just X-Men. But Doctor Strange is also a place for a lot of stuff like that, where people are just like, hey, no one's watching, I can just do whatever I want. Which is part of why I love Doctor Strange comics, because he's so underread for most of his history. Like with the Spider-Man comic, you kind of have to adhere to specific ideals of what people are expecting Spider-Man to be because so many people are going to read it and there's so many editorial fingers through it being like, oh, you can't do that, that's not Spider-Man, whatever. But no one gives a crap about Doctor Strange, so you can do whatever you want. Nobody cares. So like all of these writers and artists are just like, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to kill him and do this and like take his soul out and then shoot it through space or whatever. Like everyone's doing all this crazy stuff. And like they're just kind of allowed to do it. It's such a great platform for these kind of creators. It's kind of a big part of why I love the character.
That.
Yeah,
I love the idea that there's these like characters who are now in gigantic blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
Who at one point no one gave a shit about, and writers are like, I'm just gonna like, I don't know, put some bondage in here, fuck around and find out. And now, like, at some point, someone's gonna like pick these books up and be like, "Whoa, hello."
Yeah.
I really hope that comes about when the X-Men join the MCU.
Oh yeah.
I hope a lot of kids, or not kids, I hope a lot of people are like, "Oh, these books are wild."
Mm-hmm. Or
So
like people going back like Golden Age Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Yes. I've been reading the original X-Men, like the Stan Lee stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good at all.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Stan Lee. Maybe he had some cool ideas, but I've never read a Stan Lee comic I like.
Oh really? Wow.
I'm not liking it at all. I have to read more, but like.
Have you read the Lee Kirby Fantastic Four stuff?
That's probably next. Okay,
yep.
so
you have to read that.
Reed Richards. Hate Reed Richards. Hate him.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Love Doctor Doom.
Yep.
So I guess it's intrinsic.
I guess you're on his side then.
Yeah, I'm Team Doom. I don't know. Yeah, all right, I'm Team Doctor Doom. So the big the big bad of this story is Brigand. Like, is that like
It's Brigand and no. So the main character, like the main villains in this, are introduced in this story. So Brigand and Nicodemus West are both his characters created for this. Like you get little bits and pieces of like different villains, like you said before. Like there's a panel of like Dormammu and there's a panel of like Nightmare and stuff. But yeah, for the most part, it's focusing more on Strange's medical background, which is not something that people have really delved into. This is one of the first comics that was like, hang on, his origin was that he was a surgeon. Why haven't we done anything with that? Like he's Doctor Strange. This is one of those kind of comics that's like, okay, let's look at that. How does a doctor kind of reconcile his need to help people and save people? How does he reconcile that with he has all these magic abilities and he can just conjure anything and go into all the different realms and stuff? So this whole story is very focused on kind of trying to understand the balance between like science and technology and more mystical and kind of metaphysical stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of very interesting stuff. But the villain Nicodemus West is also Michael Stuhlbarg's character in the two Doctor Strange movies. He's he's like one of the surgeons.
So he gets credited in the movie, and I was like, okay, like is he? I was like, he's got to be something in the comics. And then I read this today, I was like, oh,
yeah. So he's that guy, and I don't expect that we'll ever see him become a villain in the MCU. But it's just like a thing of being like, there's a character, he exists. That's the character.
So you want to talk about the oath itself, like what that means? Because like,
wait, it's talking about the oath is referring to Strange's Hippocratic oath. It's referring to his kind of his need and his desire to help and protect and save lives basically, and trying to understand like how can he do that as a doctor compared to how he can do it as kind of the Sorcerer Supreme and his kind of two responsibilities. Like the main kind of question of this book is, should Strange spend all his time trying to find the cure to save Wong, or should he kind of just be like, oh no, it's gonna just leave it or whatever? And then we're talking spoilers, so like at the end of the book, he has this big decision where he's like, I can use this last bit of the cure to like spread it around the world and have like a cure for cancer and like cure every disease in the world, or I can use it to save my friend. And ultimately, he chooses to save his friend because the story is about the oath. It's about his Hippocratic oath to save any life that he is committed to. Like Wong came into his care. He promised that he would, he made a promise to him that he would help him and he would save his life, and he committed to that. And that's kind of the cap off on the story. So yeah, I think when I hear the oath, I think of that.
It's such a cool moral quandary of like he has this little thing of liquid, and he only has enough to either save his friend, who the entire plot has been about, or save the world. And it's like, where does your oath, like which way does your oath lean? Like you committed to your friend, but you also could save the world.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he went through all of this. He like went into another dimension. There was this weird squid, like brood-esque monster that he fights to get this like just this vial that he thinks is only going to cure cancer.
Yeah.
But in reality, it cures everything.
It does.
So the monster itself is a cat, and it swings its arm and it shoots out like brood. It is an absolutely bonkers design, and I loved it.
So this is why I'm saying like you should read more Doctor Strange stuff because it's just all
like
that.
Doctor Strange.
It's crazy designs and insane visuals, and it's all stuff like that.
It is. It's even funnier because they go into this like shop, and Doctor Strange is reading his little journal or whatever. And Wong has to fight this group of guys who come in to fight them. And Doctor Strange has no idea that it's happening. Wong's like kicking ass.
Yeah.
He's like...
That's what I'm saying, where this is a really important story for developing Wong as a character, where like he was kind of just like, he was basically like Alfred to Strange's Batman. Whereas here, they're like, oh, he's like a martial arts expert. Like that's his thing. Like Strange is the magic guy and Wong is like the guy who'll go in and kind of get his hands dirty. Like he's kind of got a bit more grit and he's kind of a bit tougher. So that's kind of a very key point.
Now that I'm thinking about it, seems like a trope that I never realized before. Like Green Hornet has it also.
Yep.
Like yeah.
Huh. It definitely is. Again, there's a lot of kind of tropes that are at play in Stranger Things, and they've been kind of ironed out by now. And now Wong is definitely more an even playing field. But this was an important step forward.
Wong is probably a household name now. Like,
it is
imagine
crazy to me.
Yeah. Like people know these characters now. And it's just bonkers to me that like my brothers will talk about like Star Wars stuff and they're like, I can like be like, oh yeah, now that I'm talking about it, I just completely blanked on his name. He's blue, he's got red eyes. Grand Admiral Thrawn. Like I can talk about Thrawn and my brothers know who he is. Like it's so weird to me that this stuff is so much more accessible in the best way. Like it's just cool that like there is all this stuff out there now. Doctor Strange's cape. Let's talk about that for a second. I wanted to ask about
cloak.
That.
It's a cloak, not a cape.
Cloak. His cloak. Why the fuck did they not do the cool hooks?
Oh yeah, no, those hooks are kind of MCU kind of thing. But this story is important for developing the cloak a bit. So this is the story that kind of gives the cloak more character because now, like in the MCU, the cloak of levitation is kind of a character of its own right, where it kind of has like a mind of its own. It's like the magic carp in Aladdin is kind of the main comparison. And it
didn't have that before this.
The oath is kind of one of the first ones that kind of established like it's kind of got a character of its own. It used to like just kind of move and follow Strange around, but didn't really have like a personality as such. Whereas this one kind of established that a bit more. Again, like this is a foundational Doctor Strange text. Wow. It is like incredibly important for developing this character and like modernizing him. Because like before I think Doctor Strange was a lot of like hoary hosts of Hoggoth and the moons of Mandripore, like a lot of like all of these kind of crazy out there like spells and things. And I love all that. But it is also very rooted in kind of an earlier time of explaining what you're doing while you're doing it and overwriting everything because that's how comics were written at the time. And Doctor Strange, I think, is one of the better ones of that because his character is kind of inherently, he just kind of works with that because he's doing all these spells and stuff. Yeah. But I think this one this story really modernizes it really well and makes it more approachable. And then everyone can take my brain with it after that. His
gloves in this are so fucking cool because they're the yellow, like the typical, but then when you get deeper, it's got the circles of like the black on it. Yeah. I was like, damn, is that always what his gloves look like under there? So
he has always had that as part of his core design. His very early design, he didn't have the cloak of levitation or the eye of Agamotto, the kind of the eye on his chest. He kind of got those later. But his early thing, he had the kind of the blue tunic. He had like the same hair and kind of facial hair, and he had those gloves. That was kind of his very early design. So he's always had the gloves, and he's only ever had them in the MCU with Thor Ragnarok, unfortunately.
Yeah, which is what. It's like a bit. The fear of costumes just annoys me to no end with the Marvel universe. Yeah, that's like fair. With DC, you got fucking Peacemaker. Yeah, like. That's just the costume. It's just like, this is what you're fucking getting. Like, I love that aspect of like, superhero books are fucking wild.
They're goofy.
Embrace that.
Yeah, they're silly.
The one thing I really, really hate about this kind of stuff is like the trope joke. It's like, aha, look at this silly costume.
Yeah.
Like WandaVision.
Yeah, MC does it a
WandaVision's a
lot.
literally Halloween costume. It's like, I get that it's just like, I'm not a purist. I don't care, but it's like, I don't know, like just give them a cool costume.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like a pro-military bullshit like everything else.
I think that's probably why I think my favorite MCU costume, it's probably just a bias on my side, but I think is the Doctor Strange outfit. Especially the most recent one because they streamlined it more and it's more kind of heroic. Because it feels like, you can see it's not like a militaristic thing. It's got a very distinct kind of feel to it where it's kind of like more like monk garbs and stuff rather than like an actual kind of like uniform he puts on.
And it feels like layered too, which is really cool.
It's got actual texture to it. Like it feels like it's something that he's actually wearing, whereas most MCU suits are just kind of they just wrap around them and it doesn't feel like there's an actual tangible thing they're wearing. Yeah.
Before I ask you about the eye, I think my favorite MCU costume has to be the new Spider-Man one because it got rid of all of the extra frills. And
Yeah. They really do over-design everything.
Yes, I think most companies do. I think in general, there's most over-designs.
Yep.
I know everyone likes the new Batman costume, but what the fuck were those like thing? I get it's his early stuff, but like, what the shit? Like, why did you need that? People can't see me, but I'm putting my hands up. Okay, the Eye of Agamotto.
Yes.
Is it an actual eye in the comics?
Kind of. So initially, it wasn't really. It was just like some amulet they had. And then it was kind of established like, oh no, it is an actual eye. And then Brian Michael Bendis did a run of New Avengers where he had the story of like Agamotto's like come back for his eye basically. So it's like an actual like literal eye.
That's kind of cool.
But and for most of its history, it's kind of just been like it's just kind of an amulet that can kind of just do whatever. Especially in those early Ditko stories, the Eye of Agamotto is like the main thing he uses, and it's like a jack of all trades. It can just seemingly do anything.
It's his sonic screwdriver, essentially.
Basically,
like his,
it's just like whatever he needs to do. He needs to
Machina.
reveal something, or he needs to read someone's mind, or kind of It's just kind of can do all sorts of stuff. But Agamotto is like one of the main kind of the main like kind of deities or kind of beings that Strange calls on, because like the Vishanti is like a thing that he calls on a lot. It's kind of like a collective of lots of different beings and stuff, which you see in Triumph and Torment. They kind of delve into that a bit more.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about Doctor Strange so much, is that he is a hero who has no powers. Doctor Strange himself has no actual inherent ability or powers. Everything that he has is learned. He's not like Spider-Man where it was like an accident. He is learning everything just through reading like ancient texts and tomes and books and stuff. That's why I love Doctor Strange stories. He's like reading books and stuff. It's all like just knowledge. He just acquires it. He's just dedicated to it.
Can anyone use magic in the Marvel Universe? I thought it was like a Homo Magi type thing.
It can depend. It's kind of summarized like, oh yeah, it's just kind of something that anyone can do. Summarized have been like, oh yeah, Strange is like some destined kind of chosen one character, which I don't like as much. I love the version of Strange where he's kind of a guy who kind of had everything and then kind of fell from grace and then had to like build himself up just through like hard work and dedication and trying to like learn and like better himself. So yeah, it's one of those things where like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of like, you could probably teach Spider-Man magic, but if you did that, then Spider-Man wouldn't be as interesting, or Doctor Strange wouldn't be as interesting. So they just leave it like, oh yeah, whatever. But like, that's just the cool thing I love about the character, is that he's just learning all the time.
Spider-Man would use it to fuck up his marriage, so.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's the thing as well, is Doctor Strange is one of those people, one of the only people that can be trusted with that much power, or at least he seems to think so, which is kind of one of the things in Multiverse of Madness as well.
Does he have does he have like a boo? Like is he like married? Like I don't know his whole like thing.
So Clea is his main love interest through most of his history. He's had a couple
she
other.
is Doctor Strange now, right?
Yeah, so she is. She's not a doctor. Okay. She's just. I think they call her Doctor Strange still, but yes, she is the current Sorcerer Supreme in the Marvel 616 universe.
Got it.
But she first appeared in the Ditko run as well. She is the niece of Dormammu, so she comes from the Dark Dimension. Yeah, I know. To throw that on your lap and just deal with that.
You don't get to walk. You don't get to walk past that. So she is the niece. So who is Dormammu's sister or brother?
Sister. So Clea's mother is Umar, who is another kind of big, kind of godlike character in the Dark Dimension. So there's like a whole lot of different like lords and stuff in the Dark Dimension.
Is she,
there's like a whole hierarchy.
She doesn't have a fire. Okay, she doesn't have a firehead. I'm
She
just
doesn't have a
wondering
firehead.
who porked Dormammu. It's
Yeah,
like,
I know.
no offense, just like he's got like a big firehead. Like, is that on Doring? Like, is he like, is he going at it and like you have to breathe in like the brimstone? But okay, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah, it's hilarious that, like,
she's.
That like the Dark Dimension, as I said, was just like, look at all these crazy creatures and monsters, and look at all these weird things. And then Clea's just like, oh yeah, I'm just some like normal looking person who has like white hair. That's my main distinguishing visual trait.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm looking. Yeah. I've talked about this on the show before. The hardest part about doing the show is sometimes I'll Google what characters look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what people are? Horny. So anytime you Google something, you never know what you're going to find.
yeah.
Like
It's a whole rabbit
Grandpa
hole.
from Ben 10, all porn. Should not have Googled it.
Yeah, very cool.
But you know what? Umar is an interesting looking character. She's cool looking.
Yep.
I know what he looks like. Hated what he looked like in the movie.
Dormammu?
Just give me a cool looking
Firehead
he's
dude.
Ditko,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. So
Yeah,
most of
just
the
give me one
main
of those
Strange players
designs.
did Ditko. Ditko
Don't
introduced
be-
like a lot of the early Strange stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, don't be a coward. Give me some Ditko. Give me some
No,
straight up Kirby.
I agree.
Yeah. But okay, so the oath, he does like he gets also cursed. Okay, if I have a gun with really bad vibes, I can shoot a magic user.
Hang
Basically,
on.
the whole
Sorry,
thing.
I'm just gonna. You said very
Hitler's
bad vibes. Let's delve into that a bit more. What kind of
It's
vibes does it
Hitler's
have, Dan?
gun.
It's Hitler's gun.
It's
he used to kill
Hitler's gun.
himself.
The guy's like, yeah, this gun just has horrible vibes, so I can shoot magic users with it. And the guy's like, he's not a werewolf. Like it's silver. You got to make sure he's dead. Like, okay, Brigand. Is he like a character? Like, what was his deal?
He's just some dude that he's hired. Like, oh yeah, just take Hitler's gun and go and shoot Doctor Strange.
Is he a character that was made for this story, or was he
Yes.
before?
No,
the
the villains
He's
are
just
both
like
made
a-
for the story.
God, that's awesome. That he's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, like I'll just get Hitler's gun and shoot Doctor Strange with it.
It's such an
this-
insane story decision, but I respect it so much.
Is this canon?
Hmm?
Is this canon? Like, is this like a story that
Yeah,
counts?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when Doctor Strange takes his glove off, it's like straight Frankenstein. How fucked up were his hands?
Oh yeah,
Like in that
they
car
were
accident.
real mangled. They don't look good. They
Was he wearing a seatbelt? Because it sounds like in this he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Like he was like, I'm gonna sell people who made uncomfortable seatbelts. Like,
in the 60s, he
Strange.
was like in his initial origin, he was driving a convertible from memory, and he kind of like he was like kind of flying out of it in the panel that Ditko drew. Whereas, yeah, that in the modern origin, it's kind of been updated, so it's not really that. But yeah, it was a
Damn.
pretty horrific car crash initially.
Huh.
But yeah, I want to talk about that bit though, where he takes off his gloves, because that's one of my favorite bits of the whole book, which is when they basically like Strange Nicodemus just like stop magic for a kind of short brief time. They just kind of have to like fight it out in the rain. It's so like overly dramatic and like over the top, and it's like it's raining and pouring and dark, and like it's so good. That's a great story decision. Yeah, it's just a really fun scene. And also like showing Strange's relationship to Wong, where he's like, I don't need magic. I can still beat you up because Wong trained me and he's taught me all this great kung fu and stuff.
So we talked a lot about this issue.
Mm-hmm.
The other issue we only read one. I only got time to read one other issue of the original one of the second volume written by.
So the second volume was written by a whole lot of people, but this story was written by Roger Stern.
Yeah. What is Roger Stern most well known for?
So he wrote a bunch of great stuff. He's possibly my favorite Marvel writer, if only behind Jonathan Hickman. But he did a really great run on Spider-Man. So he introduced the Hobgoblin, and he did a whole bunch of stuff with
That's
that.
why I know him.
He also did what many consider to be the best Avengers run of all time. He just incredibly consistent and has done just so many amazing stories. And this Doctor Strange run that he did is my favorite run of the character. And it's not collected. You can't go buy it in like an omnibus or like trade paperbacks or really anything. It's incredibly frustrating. But every single one of those issues that he wrote is just a masterclass in like comic storytelling on like what you can do with the medium, and it's just so good. It's like the peak of everything that I love about Doctor Strange. And I think it's a good thing. Sorry, could you go ahead?
No, it's the full issue is just like top to bottom, full story. Like you don't need to buy. It's just a standalone, really good story. You meet a character, you learn everything about him, you grow connected to him, you see what's wrong, you see the conflict, you see the resolution. Like it was a really good. Like it sucks I didn't get to read the other ones, but like this one was like, oh shit, like comics used to have a whole hell of a lot more dialogue in them, which is very interesting because like I'd assume now it would have more, but it does not. But yeah, there's like some very cool art stuff on this page, like where he's like a lot of like the magic, the way they display it is so cool. Like when they're in the house, like how like Doctor Strange is like the I would say the main color of this issue is this like pink because the demon that's like possessing him has that. But like seeing that like with the V's in this, it's hard to explain when people are listening to this, but like it's really worth picking up. It is issue 48 of volume 2. It's on the Marvel app. So if you literally search Doctor Strange 48, it will come up.
I think it's so funny that you're talking about how great the visuals are, because when I reread this issue to talk about this, I was like, oh, this is quite tame. Because every issue after that, this is very tame for where, this is like Roger Stern's kind of first issue of his run, basically. And then after this, it's just kind of bonkers. So
Holy shit.
After this, he's kind of like traveling
52.
through time. 52? I'll show you.
Like some of the paneling is so interesting for this age.
Yeah.
Like there's this, it's very experimental. Who's the artist?
So the artist that he worked, so Roger Stern, that's part of why I love this run so much. He works with an insane amount of crazy good artists. So he works with Marshall Rogers, he worked with Paul Smith, he worked with, I think, Gene Colan later. He's done like this, like Strange. I tend to be drawn to very visual characters. I like characters who have a kind of kineticism or a very kind of visual dynamic. Like that's why I'm so drawn to the Marvel Cosmic characters or like the Flash and stuff. And Strange is kind of the antithesis to that. But like, look at that cover for, what is it? It's issue 52.
That's how I was looking for 52. Like, what?
It's
that's
like
wild.
Yeah, all of the Marshall Rogers stuff, especially, I think is just, it's just my favorite Doctor Strange stuff. There's so many crazy page layouts and just very experimental ways to kind of like have panels kind of flow in and out of each other. Like it's not like classic kind of panel, kind of like 9-panel grid or a 6-panel grid or whatever. It is just bonkers and kind of whatever the kind of the story calls for. But go
ahead.
It's just the story after this I think it was 48 we're talking about. After this one, it goes into like crazy stuff where he's like traveling through time and he's visiting, like he's going into like different like reincarnated souls of him in the past and stuff, and then he gets captured by like Nazis who are trying to like take away his power and stuff and summon Dormammu. It's crazy. There's so much insane stuff. It's just bonkers.
So we talked a lot about the comics. So I do want to talk about the movie. So if you're listening, we are about to get into spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I am saying this loud and clear. We are about to get into spoilers, so just turn the episode off. You can find us at gatecrashers.fan for our website. You can find us on all social media at GateCrashersPod. Beyond here, there be spoilers. So turn back or it is on you. Yep. It is on you. It is on you. It is on you. If you listen to these spoilers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, don't at me.
Don't. This is your fault if you continue listening. So I love that the main plot of Multiverse of Madness is one angry local single hot mom decimates
trying to find her kids.
Multiverse's team.
That's
what I want to talk about first, because I need to talk about how fucking much I loved that, because the leak came out last week with all the characters on the Illuminati. And everyone's like, oh my God, like they're going to be Professor Xavier, like they're going to introduce the X-Men, like this is going to be fucking murdered. Just destroyed.
And like viscerally
It's
murdered. I was really surprised.
I could not believe they let them do that.
Specifically black bolts, because that was all in frame. Like there's some clever cutting around, like when they kill like Captain Carter and stuff. But like Black Bolt, like his head like explodes and like turns to jelly at the back, and he's like bleeding out of his mouth and stuff. It's crazy.
So fucking good. I was like, I cannot believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Fucking the Captain Carter with the shield, like right through the middle. I was like, oh, this is the stuff I live for. I cannot believe this is a Marvel movie.
Yeah, that's the stuff I enjoy the most in the movie. So like for a bit of context. So obviously, I love Doctor Strange, clearly. But Sam Raimi is my all-time favorite director. So I have just always loved his work. I always loved Doctor Strange. And I remember like ages ago, I was like, oh, that'd be like a really interesting pairing just because he's got a very visual style, Raimi. And Doctor Strange I think needs that kind of thing. I liked the first Doctor Strange movie, but it did feel very kind of restrained and kind of locked down and not that trippy. Whereas I think you need somebody who's like, no, I'm going to like spin the camera around and do all this like crazy stuff that you wouldn't expect at all. Because that's what you need for a Doctor Strange movie. So hiring Raimi is like, he's the perfect person for it, I think. So like, coming into this, I was like, I could not be more excited just because like, and all the trailers and stuff, I was skeptical. I was like, is it just going to be like cameos the whole time? Like, is it just going to be like, oh, look at that character that you recognize from that other thing or whatever. But I just loved...
That was my fear too.
Yeah. I just loved how much of a Sam Raimi movie it was. Like, the stuff in this, I was like, I can't believe they let him do that. Like, there's... Raimi has this technique. He does it in his Spider-Man movies and a lot of stuff in, like, the 90s. He has, like, fading, like, montages. He'll have, like, a montage of, like, different shots kind of fading in and out of each other, like, different characters all kind of in, like, one kind of moving montage. And he had that in there. And I was like, I can't believe they let him do that. Or, like, they like, classic, like, Evil Dead kind of, like, tracking shots. Like, they're a bit in Wanda's house, and you kind of see, like, evil Wanda coming in and kind of, like, watching her, and it's, like, hiding behind the stairs. I'm like, that is, like, straight-up Evil Dead stuff. Or, like, there's a bit where, very early on, the opening scene, when Defender Strange and America are running away from the big, like, monster that's chasing them, there's a bit where Strange is kind of, like, wounded in his leg, and it starts getting, like, corrupted. It's the exact same corrupted effect that he uses in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. Like, exactly the same. Like, there's so many little things like that. I'm like, wow. Like, it is, like, straight up just, like, so, like, Evil Dead and Sam Raimi, and I just... Yeah.
So the biggest thing that I picked up on, like, the thing that I was so hyper-focused on, other than my love for Elizabeth Olsen, was when she came out of the... it's like a gong. And her hand
just like
comes out, and it's like contorting and twisting, and she like pulls herself. And I was like, "That's a Kandarian. Like that is straight up Evil Dead. Like she's like crawling." I was like, "Oh my god!" And like there were some shots where I told you earlier, like the camera is panned up, and you're watching her like do a circle around whoever.
Yeah.
Like they do it with the spirits later in the film too. But it's like that is just that's just Sam Raimi doing demons. Like what the fuck am I watching? The fucking cape was the most badass thing.
Yeah.
Where he like made it out of demons.
Oh yeah.
Like
I love that so much because like all the chattering like skeleton demons that were like kind of like mocking him and heckling him. I'm like, that is the most like Sam Raimi, like it's like straight out of like Army of Darkness and stuff. It's just like I just like I was cackling through most of this movie. And like I have a lot of problems with it. It's very messy. It's got like a ton of issues, but I couldn't help myself from like loving it because I was just like, they let Sam Raimi just kind of go like run wild with it.
So I don't go to the MCU movies like I go to have a good time. Like I'm not like, oh, this is gonna be cinema. It's not. It's a fucking Marvel movie. It's a commercial for the next one, essentially. Which is kind of cool that this one wasn't as hardcore.
I liked how self-contained it was. It was a very simple story. Most of them are very big. And I like how this one was just like, Wanda wants her kids. They're trying to stop Wanda. That's it. That's kind of all you really need to know. That's kind of all the main details for it.
I really did like I think Wong and Strange's like friendship really got like a highlight in this one. Like we got to see their relationship grow.
Yeah.
But I'm not the person to talk about this. I'm just going to say that first. I'm not going to talk about it in length, but I think there is a very weird thing about the MCU and motherhood. Especially after Age of Ultron, with the fucked up shit.
Oh, yeah.
That they did to Black Widow, and that story continued into Black Widow, and and now like the entire premise of this woman is a monster because she can't get her children. It's a very
I think a good counterpoint from most of the MCU is like Meredith Quill in the Guardians movies, who is not present much in those movies, but is present in like spirit, as cheesy it is to say. Like she is kind of very much the kind of driving force. Yeah. And like every time the music plays, you're kind of reminded of Quill's relationship to her and stuff. So
yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I was just like, what is this bad? Like I was like, is this just like the plots and I'm reading too far into it? Again, it's a Marvel movie, probably am. I liked, this is the perfect sequel to WandaVision. My favorite, the only MCU show that I thought was really worth anything. The rest of them were terrible. It was nice to see like Carter, but that's like that's elsewhere. Yeah. But like this is a very interesting continuation of WandaVision. Like at the end of WandaVision, she's like, I'm gonna leave, but not for a good reason. Like that could have gone every other Marvel movie. It would have been like, oh, she's good now. Like she learned her lesson, but it was like, no. Yeah.
I was surprised at how far they went with like just making her incredibly malicious.
Oh, when she's running really through the tunnels and she's like dragging her like leg, I was like, holy fuck.
It was like Terminator stuff. Yeah, it was like like T-1000 or like T-800, like kind of like breaking down just the exoskeleton and running through at the end of the first Terminator. Yeah, it's very much that kind of like slasher movie.
Like, she's a slasher because like they can't, they're powerless. They're like you're expecting like the Jock or like those people to fight back, like and you've got Strange who's like this big powerful superhero. You think they're gonna fight back, but they can't. Like they can't do anything to her. The police in like a horror film always get killed. That was the Illuminati. They were like, oh, we'll stop them. It's like, no, you fucking won't.
Yeah.
I'm about to see it again in like 2 hours with my brothers.
Cool.
But like,
I'm
actually excited to see it.
Yeah, like I wonder how it'll play on a rewatch. I think knowing just how fast paced it is and how I think my main issue was like I'm fine with Raimi being really fast because most of his stuff was kind of in and out, like an hour and a half kind of thing. But the stuff I felt was just not as effective was like character like introduced like America Chavez and then she kind of felt like more like a MacGuffin than an actual character.
Yes,
there's a lot of stuff like that where I'm like it would have been good to just have more time to sit in that and develop that more. So yeah, I'm interested to see if it'll play better on a rewatch.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of. I think there was a lot of room for America to be bigger, and I really liked her, but like, I wanted more of her. I guess we'll get more of her because they're setting up Young Avengers. There's no way they're not. She was really good. Like I really like how the movie opened. Like, did a lot of things
straight running. It's like right into it.
They did a lot of things I wasn't expecting them to do. And you'll appreciate, I know you're one of the other people who's really going to understand the fact that they let Sam Raimi do straight up slapstick humor in a couple of the scenes. I was like, what? Like the cape, like smacking him, like that was great. And then Bruce.
As I say, so I was very worried that he wouldn't be in this because Bruce Campbell had been talking about how he might have been cut out of the movie. I wasn't sure if he was in it. And then I lost my mind, not only when he turned up, but then when I realized that, because Sam Raimi is famous for kind of tormenting Bruce Campbell in his movies, where he's just like, oh yeah, just like slap him around. Like he's a master physical comedian.
And beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, the Evil Dead movies is always just people beating up on Bruce Campbell. That's kind of like the core thing for all of them is Sam Raimi just tormenting his high school friend. So then to have him in this, and then have him have Sam Raimi have him beat himself up again, I was just like, so good. I love that so much.
He does this thing. It's literally Evil Dead. Like his hands are beating his possessed. And he does the
I know. I was when he did that, I was like, because in Evil Dead 2, he grabs the back of his hair and he like kind of flips himself over. And I was like, is he gonna flip himself over? Like this guy is pretty old now. I don't know if he can do that. And he's like, oh, he didn't do it, but
he Did you? Okay, you're a Raimi person. Did you see the car?
There's a bit where Strange kind of walks out, and like with the traffic lights. Yeah, I was like, was that the car? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I was the
I
only one
wasn't
in the
quite
theater
sure.
went,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a car. I was like, yeah, there it is.
Everyone was talking about leading up to the movie, like, oh, I can't wait for all these cameos. I need to see all these. It's like, is Reed Richards going to be in it, and is Professor X going to be in it? And I'm like, all I need is the car. I need Bruce Campbell. That's it.
Yep.
That's all the cameos I need.
All I needed. That's why I get that everyone else is like that, and I was like, oh man, I really hope they do the panning shots. Like, I really hope I get to see the demon
Yeah, exactly.
camera. And I got everything I wanted, so I'm good.
Exactly.
I don't need cameos. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, I will admit. Oh, I don't like Danny Elfman. Typically, I don't. There's some Danny Elfman stuff that like fucking.
Did you like the score?
Some of his stuff is the greatest compositions of all time. The Simpsons theme song being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of got this like commercial jingly vibe to him, and he's gotten that more and more over the years, especially after Tim Burton just kind of shit the bed and never made a good movie again after the 90s.
Yeah.
I really liked Burton's stuff. Not Burton. I really liked Elfman stuff. Sorry, they're interchangeable.
There was some really
in
cool,
brain.
like there's a really cool like use of electric guitar and stuff in some moments.
Yeah.
And like there's like piano bits when like people wake up and stuff. And the highlight of the whole movie, I think, is that the magic fight between the two strangers.
The magic fight.
When it started, I was like, oh, what a cool thing. He's like shooting the notes at him, and then he blocked it. And then it kept going. I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe they let him do this. I can't believe they like committed this hard and it went on this long and it works this well.
Dude, he fucking pulled up like bars of music and caught the notes and made a composition and threw it back at him. And he played it's the opening riff of Night on Bald Mountain. And I was like, what? That's the coolest shit ever. I literally texted Mike after the movie. I was like, there is a scene specifically for you. You're the only one who's going to like know every single thing that is right there. But I'm also glad that he kept Giacchino's theme a little bit and built on it.
Yeah, he didn't use as much as I was hoping, but yeah.
I wish there was more. But there was also, I marked it down earlier. I'll see if I can find it. But one of the tracks is very reminiscent of his
Flash and Justice League?
His Flash theme. Yeah.
Yep, I heard that as well.
I was like, is this the straight Flash theme? Like,
Yeah.
Elfman, they're going to catch you, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that in film scoring. It's just kind of a job,
that's
I
fine.
guess.
I mean, he had motifs, he had stuff like that, like things. I was like, a lot of the Marvel movies don't have this, and it has started to happen with like Giacchino's Spider-Man stuff. There's been themes that built in motifs and things like a lot of other. I think the only other one that I can tell you, other than the Avengers theme, because that got drilled, the only other Marvel movies that I think have a real theme are the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like I think I know their theme when I hear it.
Yeah.
And it is nice to see that we may be going that way across the board.
Yeah.
Because like I think Captain America's from one kind of gets just thrown out.
The first Captain America theme is used sporadically because he has a different theme in Winter Soldier and Civil War. But then the first Avenger theme is used in I think it's used in Endgame. I think maybe Infinity War. Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to see the music is getting better. But okay, so the music. The only time that I got where they fucking got me, where I was a fucking mark, is all the Illuminati are coming out, and I was like, where the fuck is he? Where is that bald-headed fuck? And then this yellow motherfucker rolls out. I was like,
the X-Men theme. Yeah, like it's straight up fan service, but like I was like, that is really damn cool. Also,
that fucking rocks.
I just love how hard they committed to putting him in a goofy yellow chair. He looked ridiculous, and I love how they let him look ridiculous. Like there's a bit where he's kind of like sitting in it, and he looks like he's just come out of like the top of a submarine or something. Like he looks absurd, and I just enjoy that they're like, no, that's Professor X's chair. Why would we give him anything different? Of course, it's Professor X's chair.
Why would we do something different?
Yeah.
His mind battle was super. He was only in it for like a minute, but he was the only one of the Illuminati that mattered, and like. Hearing him be like, some people deserve a second chance. And I was like, he's talking about Magneto.
That line was from the Fox X-Men movies as well.
Was it?
He says that in, I think, Days of Future Past, I think it is. So it's kind of a nod to the Fox stuff.
Huh. Who's he talking about in the Fox ones? Is it Magneto?
No, I think he was talking about younger him. Like he was saying like, the line was something like, just because someone stumbles and loses their way doesn't mean they're lost forever, I think it is. He says that to younger version of himself.
I hope this is them killing all that off. I hope they're like, no.
I think so.
we're
I'm
redoing
very
it.
interested to see what they do. I think this is the last time we'll see Patrick Stewart's Xavier. I think it was just kind of a fun thing. But I'm interested to see if they will do anything at all with Black Bolt. It was great to see Anson Mount come back from and like redeem him from the Inhuman show because that was the exact same Black Bolt. It was super cool.
Yeah.
And Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, I think could go either way. I can see them doing it as like, he's just kind of having fun with the fan casting. He's like, well, I wouldn't do it for real, but I'll do it for like this one little cameo in this one movie. Or I could see them being like, kind of just slowly kind of introducing.
Yeah, because that's not supposed to come out for like a couple more years, right?
Who knows? They just lost the director, so it could be ages away.
Yeah, so who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I imagine we'll probably find out. I would say this year we'd find out the cast of Fantastic Four. Probably.
Yeah.
And then we'd know if it was Krasinski or not.
I did like that she was like, do you have children?
Yeah. I know you hate Reed, but I just adore.
That's fine.
I adore
It's
Reed
okay
Richards.
to like him.
Yeah. Krasinski has never been my pick for Reed.
No.
But I think he's decent. He's just not as interesting a pick as a lot of others. But I think he did do pretty well with like the small amount of screen time he had, and yeah.
Yeah, I like let's talk fan castings. What's the guy's name? From I'm literally saying that thing. It was a Netflix show. He was in iZombie.
I haven't seen iZombie. I don't watch a whole lot of TV in general. I'm really bad with fan casting. I like people always like, oh, who would you want for this? I'm like, I don't know.
Listen, as long as I get Ryan Reynolds back to Deadpool, I know everybody gives him shit. Like everyone's like, oh, Deadpool fucking sucks. I love those movies.
Yeah,
they're stupid as shit.
That's my thing, but it's
I just want to see him interact with like the Marvel universe.
Oh yeah,
I think we will.
There's a lot to do there.
Empire show, and now I need to figure this out because I need to remember the name of the show because it's really gonna bother me.
Mm-hmm.
It was the guy who did the Hill House bullshit. Got it. It was Midnight Mass.
Oh, Rahul Kohli?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would really like to see that.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
I really like him as an actor, and I think he's I really like him as a dad in Midnight Mass, and I really want to see him be able to do that on a bigger scale.
My pick has always been Glenn Howerton, but they're not doing
Yes.
Glenn Howerton. He's kind of been thrown out as well, but there's no way they're doing him.
No. Just the whole Sunny gang. Bring them all in.
Yeah, exactly. Danny DeVito is
why
Ben
not?
Grimm.
No, Danny DeVito is Mole Man.
Yeah,
Isn't that,
here we go. Yeah.
Perfect. God, when she was like, well, do you have a what? Is her mother alive?
Yeah.
Well, good, because they're going to need her.
Yeah, it was a good line.
And I was like, what? But yeah, I'm glad you were here. I'm glad we got to talk. I'm so glad you saw it because I really wanted to talk about it with you. I'm about to see it again, so I hope I really enjoyed the second time too.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see how it goes on a rewatch.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing it again.
Yeah. I'm seeing it at 10, so it's like gonna be a late one.
Yeah.
Because
I drove, so I saw it in IMAX, and we didn't have an IMAX like in my area, so I had to drive like an hour and a half to go and see it in IMAX. I got back at like midnight last night. I was like, worth it.
My theater was, I usually don't go, I only see it in Philly usually, but they were like, oh, it's at this mall, like an hour past. I was like, oh, so it was only an hour to get there.
Yeah.
But I don't like driving. So like I got there and I was like, okay, I'm here. And then I walked in and there was a line from the beginning of the theater all the way down this huge hallway. And I was like, is this not a press screening? So it turns out it was half and half. It was like people like won contests and stuff to see it early. And it actually made me super happy because I saw Spider-Man at a press screening and it was me and like 10 other press people. And I'm the only one gasping at all the cool stuff, like super happy to be there.
Yeah.
Because these people hate these movies. Like,
Yeah.
The one guy like talks so much shit about Batman when I saw Northman. And I was like, I was sitting there like, God damn it, like I like these. Like I'm not, I'm not a critic. I never will call myself a critic because I don't.
Yep.
I'm not. I try to help people find stuff they enjoy. And like, it was so nice to be in a theater of people who were so excited and happy to be there. Like hearing people talk, like who is American Chavez? Like they were talking about all this stuff, like people don't know, and like getting the chance to be like, oh yeah, so this is who she like getting to talk to these people, and they're like, oh, that's so cool. Like, what should I read? Like stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
that's why I love that this stuff is so big because like stuff I love, I can help other people love it too.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
like,
And
it was nice to be in that.
I hope that
So how
this
far is
movie,
an hour is your IMAX?
it's like an hour and a half to get there. It's in a different town. Yep.
Huh.
What times?
Damn. Do you want to know how many IMAXs I have near me?
How many?
Like 3.
Ah.
I can literally, I drive that way 5 minutes. I'm at one of our biggest theaters. I drive 10 minutes that way. I'm at another one. And if
so
I drive
frustrating.
10 minutes that way, I'm another one. So, and I have theaters like I'll go to
So
for,
envious.
only the big one has like the indie movies that I like to see.
Right.
So, but then
Well, that's
I'm
that thing as well as like indie movies don't really like watching movies in general in New Zealand is kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
So I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I loved, but I watched it in a small kind of not very good indie theater in my town because it's only playing in one big cinema chain. There are like 2 big cinema chains in New Zealand. It's only playing in one of them, and it was only playing in a single cinema. A single cinema in the entire country, up like two hours away at the top of the country.
Jesus.
That's the only place that most people in the country
What
can watch
chains
it.
do you have?
So we have Event Cinemas and Hoyts. So I think
Oh,
it's
you
like
don't,
Australian.
you don't have AMC, so you don't
We
get
don't
to
have
see the
AMC
Nicole
or-
Kidman?
Nope.
Oh,
I
man.
don't have any context for it other than people making jokes about it on Twitter.
Man. What is it? Heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Every time I go to the fucking movies. And it's going to be there for another year, so I can't wait.
I don't see that.
Yeah, lucky you. But
Yeah.
it's okay because I can just pop down the road and see an IMAX movie.
Frustrating.
But listen, I'm glad you were here. I'm glad we
Yeah,
did
thanks
this.
for having me. Yeah,
Um,
it was really fun. I'm always happy
I
to talk
already-
about Doctor Strange.
I already did all the exit stuff, so I'm. For everyone who listened to the end, God bless you. We at GateCrashers love MILFs. Thanks for listening.
Can I say something like just say something on like
Yeah,
comics
say
to
whatever you
recommend
want.
if you want to read it, if you want to read more on Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
So we talked about The Oath, which I think is the best place to start. It's a good kind of grounded, easy entry to just kind of pick up and read. It's a short couple of issues, very easy to get into. Then I would say go to the Roger Stern run afterwards because that's a good kind of, it's kind of throwing you more into the kind of classic, like trippy Doctor Strange stuff, but it's a bit more relatable and character focused. Then I would say the original Steve Ditko stuff. Some of the early issues are kind of a bit rough around the edges. But once like the back half of it is some of the best stuff ever put into any comics. And then I would say read also the Jason Aaron and Donny Cates run if you want more like modern stuff. The characterization of Strange in those is a little bit different to what I prefer about the character. But they're both really, really good, and they both have absolutely stunning art, especially in Aaron's run where he has Chris Bachalo doing just incredible stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, the Steve this is so much. I also say the Steve Englehart early stuff with Frank Bruner, which is just like some of the best stuff ever written for the character as well. So you see your thing?
Is the when did this stuff Aaron stuff take place in regards to his Avengers? How long was it before?
Sorry, what?
So with the Aaron run, is that before he started doing?
Yes. So the Aaron run
okay,
was
good.
2015. I think he started writing Avengers in maybe 2018, like late 2018, maybe.
Very
or 20.
cool. 'Cause-
Yeah. It's pretty distant from that, but that's a run where he basically strips Doctor Strange of all of his powers and kind of like basically removes magic from the Marvel universe. So he's like having to use like all of his enchanted weapons and stuff. But yeah, it's very good. It's just a very different flavor of Doctor Strange.
I probably have to read his Thor.
Yes, his Thor stuff is some of my favorite. Again, some of my favorite comic stuff.
We have to do a Thor episode. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, if you need someone for a Thor episode, I'm
when
also
does-
the guy.
We'll
Love and Thunder is
figure that out.
June.
We have that, and then we have the Guardians as well.
Again, which is also my thing. There's so much stuff that I love
Yeah, I
this
know.
year. My goodness.
Yeah, listen, I'm glad I have you because
Yeah.
I can give less of a shit than about Thor. Although, all the other characters in that one, we got strong Natalie Portman.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Korg.
it. That's Korg. I like Korg.
Valkyrie?
I love Valkyrie. I actually really liked Thor Ragnarok. That's where like they got me.
Yeah.
They were like, no, this is you're gonna really like these movies now. The first one, the entire film was filmed at a Dutch tilt.
Yep.
Did not like that. The second one, I try to forget ever existed.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
those first
weirdest
two aren't
Doctor
that
Who
great.
crossover.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm hoping it's more of Ragnarok. And like, I don't love Ragnarok as much as other people. I think Love and Thunder will be better because Ragnarok is the only film Taika has directed that he hasn't written. So he came into that as like as a strictly work for hire gig. So I think some of his comedy doesn't gel as well with the tone of it because he didn't actually write the story. Whereas I think Taika's main strength, like if you've seen specifically his New Zealand films, he's so good at balancing tone and having like incredibly somber, human, like depressing kind of moments and having like just the goofiest cornball stuff you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And like it seems like Love and Thunder will be more like that.
A lot of the humor of his like his New Zealand era, but like the tone of What We Do in the Shadows is like completely different than the American version. Like the American show, like everyone's like, oh, I love it. I'm like, I think I prefer the humor of the movie because it's not as like constant. Like they're like, I don't know. I really need to see his the movie with Rusty from Deadpool. Something Beasts. His indie, like his big first movie. Fuck, what is it called?
Eagle vs. Shark? He had Eagle vs. Shark and Boy were his first two movies.
Yeah, hold on. I might just be full of shit.
Are you talking about Taika's first movies?
Yeah, hold on. I'm just looking. I'm probably wrong. Oh, Hunt for the Wild People. But
Hunt for
that's
the
not
Wild
his
People.
first movies.
One of my top 10 favorite movies. I think
I
that's
need to watch that.
incredible movie. And I'm also related somewhat to the main star in it.
What'd you say?
I'm somewhat related to the main star in it. He's like a kind of distant cousin.
Nice.
To like the main kid. Because everyone in New Zealand is related.
Oh, the kid?
Yeah, the kid. Julian
Oh,
Jennison.
the kid from Deadpool, Rusty
Yeah.
Collins. That's how I know him with the the prison pocket.
Right, yeah.
Great kid. I do want to watch. Oh, it's Sam Neill. Yeah, I need to watch
it's
this.
incredible. It's an incredible movie. Like, watch that. I think you'll see what I mean about like how good Raimi balances tone.
I think he's a really good director. I think he really is.
Again,
That's why
he's one of my favorites. Like, we're getting Raimi and Doctor Strange, one of my favorite directors, my favorite director, my favorite character, and then Taika and Thor, again, one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
It's all,
dude,
it's all just
I'm
fun
actually
for me.
super excited for the. Okay, so when we do the Thor episode, we'll do the Aaron shit. But I want to read something about when he wore the leather vest.
Oh, sure. Like the
I fucking love that look.
Yeah. Thunderstruck.
And it looks like he's got it a little bit in the movie. So like,
yeah, they've kind of taken that look. I guess he's kind of like joined up with the Guardians. He's kind of gone with that.
Yeah,
outfit.
his new Thor look looks like ass.
Yeah, the blue and yellow. You don't like it?
I don't like the gold in it. It like throws off the color balance of stuff. Okay, so you can catch us next week. I've already done all the outros. Hey, we'll see you then.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for listening.
It's the GateCrasher.